Hi guys, today we are working on the PS4 from my last video again. As I said in that video, I was going to try to scrape off some of the traces, which is a little hard to do on camera. So really not a lot of point in showing me trying to scrape things. I'm trying to get the camera still to focus on them though. Got some wiggle going on here. Yeah, still having trouble focusing. Got bright enough light now to be able to see, but focus is definitely still an issue. Okay, well I think you can get the gist of what's going on. We'll have to magnify in more if we start trying to do the solder work today. I don't know if I can, I can have the multimeter there, but it's not like you need to see the readings. What we're trying to do is finish testing up the HDMI port pin by pin here. We did have a couple that were acting a little funny last time, and we couldn't really test the ones that were, multimeter works, the ones that were connected to these little traces here, which actually I'm going to magnify in a little bit more so I can definitely see what I am doing on the camera. Which actually is what helps, and that's actually what started me getting some of the YouTube video stuff going. Was, let's see if I turn off some of the light here. Nope, still not focusing. Sorry guys, my camera does not want to focus on the small objects there. Let's see, yeah, it was focused earlier, but it is definitely not wanting to focus now. Let's see if I can the camera. And then we'll slide this over this way. Seems relatively focused. Okay. Now with continuity, since there should be continuity both directions on these, it doesn't really matter what you touch first exactly, just as long as you're relatively consistent with your testing. And you can kind of see the traces pretty good now. So if we hit here, you can actually test right along the trace itself. And see, we get continuity to there. Then we want to test the top of this little connector here, which, as you can see, this whole thing is moving. Now that I got it on camera, you can actually see the whole thing slide around. And what happened is, if you see these little pins here, they got pushed out. Now you can see it on camera. There's a gap there that shouldn't be. Basically, somebody pushed in on this port really hard and bent it. And now we have all the solder points are broke loose, which we will try to solder them, but all of them look like they broke. Hopefully we didn't lose any pads underneath there. So as we're trying to solder, we'll get to see if that's the case. Looks also like this port was soldered back a little further than it probably should have been. Okay. Well, I think now that we've seen that movement, we might not have to continue testing, but we're going to anyways, just to make sure we're actually getting continuity all the way through here. Yep, we push down a little harder, we get it. I just want to make sure the traces are all good and stuff. I'm not got any bad pads underneath there. We first touch, we get nothing. We push down harder, we get something. So just drag over the top, get nothing. Like I said, as you push down, you get something. And then we got this next one over here. And I'll test here. Obviously, once we finish soldering, we'll do the same test over again. I don't know if that'll make it into this video. Soldering these can be quite a pain. I'll try to get the solder work on video. I believe I have one on my YouTube. I don't think I have it up on my Facebook yet. R&R Computer Repair on Facebook, if you want to view them on there. Or my YouTube channel, which I think is under email, which is merlinnemesis@gmail.com. Retrace this one, that's this one here. And once again, just touching it gets you nothing. Get pushed down on it without too much problem. one's not good. I don't seem to be getting anything on that. Check the trace going back. Make sure my multimeter's working. Okay. Oop, I might have been bumping the wrong one. It's this one here. I can get to the... Oh, yep. Okay, I don't even know it's moving around. It's still making contact some. This one here. Yeah, all the solder points are broke. I was hoping it was just a couple, but they're all pretty much destroyed in there. Looks like their solder wasn't the best either. It's not exactly too brittle, but you can see where it's not as shiny as it probably should have been, especially on these ones down here, but it is not the person who solders fault when there's extra pressure applied. Like I said, this should not be moving like that. And if you look over here, you can see the plastic can move beyond the metal. And it's really Sony's fault, because these little tabs shouldn't be all that holds the HDMI port together. But you can only replace them with the same ports that Sony did, because, I mean, I guess you could get a redesigned port, which I haven't seen really on the market too much yet, where maybe they fill these all the way in with metal so they can't move. But currently they're just manufactured the same way Sony does, and they all have the same issue, which is after pushing them hard enough times, they pop right out here. I tell people not to even pull the HDMI cord if they're moving their system. Just be very gentle with it, especially if they're moving around the same room, and don't ever move it outside the building. Let me see if I can bend these little tabs back in, which actually we can check the tab over here probably too. And yep, you can see a little bit of movement on that one too, right in here. And these tabs are at an angle. They should be pretty much flat. Let's grab a needle nose and see if I can bend them back. Basically, it's almost worth it to take apart your system every couple months and bend your pins back if you've moved it. Grab here. Oops, sorry about bumping the camera. Always doing the bumping of the camera because it's right there on top of the system. Okay. I can get a grip down in there. And did you see the pin move there? That's where it should be sitting. All the way where you can't even tell there's a pin there. Same thing on this side. I block some of the light on you. Okay, get the light back out there. See if we can get so you can see the pin actually move back into place. And as you see, that one move too. And that's all it takes, is that little bit of movement, because solder does not like to be slid at all. And now if we poke there, no more movement. Won't be surprised the HDMI port actually works again, but we are not leaving the customer with a non-soldered connection. That would be very horrible. Solder, the HDMI port would go in and out here and there. This one, if you just touch it, does nothing. And then if we push down on the connector, where are we getting a connection on here? Yeah, some of that. This was just a razor blade. I just scraped at it some until I got some of the top off, but you want to be very careful. These traces are not very thick. Sony went cheap on almost everything, in my opinion, including those traces, which should be thicker, deeper into the board, but they do not seem to be. Actually scraped one off one time, had to run a new line on one. I think it was the first time I ever scraped one, and I was like, really? These are that thin? Yeah, they're like paper thin. That's why I tell people, if you're going to watch my videos, watch some other videos. Maybe I forgot to mention something like that, and maybe somebody else forgot to mention if you just only watch their video. It pays to watch 2 or 3 videos if it's your first time doing this. Yeah, there, now we're getting a connection there. For this one. And once again, I don't think I'm getting anything. I'll actually check to the trace first. Yeah, see nothing to the trace. Move around on this connector. And there we go. Now we're getting something on the trace. Yeah. We're getting a connection on the pin. Like I said, I could leave them unsoldered, but that is no way to do it. Technically, if you run into this problem and you're not planning on moving your system ever again, you could just leave it the same way. And just leave it like unsoldered if you don't really have soldering skills, and probably get it to work. And like I said, if it's your own system, I mean, why not? But if it's a customer system, definitely solder it. If you don't have the skill, send it to a shop that does. I'll take in repairs if you want to send them to me, even. I don't care. I mean, obviously, we live too far outside of Pennsylvania, New York area. Probably not worth it to ship it too far. Especially since the repair is not exactly a cheap repair because of the amount of solder work. Yeah, see, I'm still getting connection on most of them now. Now they're not slid back anywhere. Really not looking forward to this solder work. Especially when it's all the pins. I was hoping maybe I'd get lucky and it wouldn't be all of them. Here, we're going to switch pins here, or switch connections so that I can get a better angle here, maybe. As I bump them under each other. Ooh. And as I drop the board down. Okay, actually that's a little bit better view, maybe. It's hard from this angle, because I'm coming in from the side, because then the light can hit it and the camera can get it. Camera does help for being able to view things though, so I actually prefer to use it. Like I said, that's kind of how I got into YouTube. Was I started using the camera on my phone originally to basically magnify in as a magnifier, because it really worked better than even my well, for soldering and magnifying at the same time, I should say. And then I realized that the camera would only stay on for so long, but if I hit record, it stayed on longer. So then all I had to do is talk a little bit, and people tell me I'm pretty good at talking. I can jabber on for forever about stuff like this. I mean, you ask me some other question that isn't technical about myself or something, I'm going to be probably not be able to talk very long, but when it comes to technical stuff, I can usually jabber on for quite a while. So I guess YouTube kind of works for me. Like I was telling people in my other videos, if you ever want a video of something specific and I have it laying around, I can even do specific videos for you. Actually, a couple videos ago, I had a problem with my heat gun, blown heat. And just so anybody knows, if you ever have the ones that when you put them in their bracket, they start to cool down. On mine, I had stored it for a little bit because I had to move it. And I hadn't had a system like this where it needed heat come in. Actually, it was the last one I needed it for was reballing a PS4's RAM chip where somebody had punched the system. And I didn't have the blown heat because my blown heat gun wasn't working. What I figured out also, I was looking at it, started taking out some screws, and I'm like, wait, that holder that holds it is magnetic. So I took and tipped it upside down away from where the magnets would have normally been to hold it in place. That shut it off. It's like a magnetic switch. And I tapped it that way, hooked it back up, plugged it in, worked beautifully. So if you ever have blown heat that has an issue, check the magnets. That may be your problem.